Okay, got it. Thank you. The first PowerPoint. So this is one that has the terms and conditions on there. This is one that goes through monies basically, and how much our sector takes in the UK and possibly worldwide. I have updated this from last year, so it will go through the UK economy. Obviously, things have been a bit difficult, obviously, for everybody over the last 2 years. So you need to take that into account. So these figures are probably down on last year or 2019. However, the figures are pretty strong for what we take in this year. And there is a link there to where I got all these reports from. And I did actually look at about 4 different reports from various different companies, and I've sort of meaned the money together because obviously they do come up quite different. They're only, I dare say they're only out a few thousand, but they are out a few thousand between each other. So I have come up with these figures. So very useful, I think, to have when you're talking to parents, because I find the biggest downfall for me when I was teaching was parents not wanting their children to go into this industry. So I think that's always very useful to have up on open evening and parents evening. You might want to crop part of that, but you can have that there. And then I've cropped it a little bit more there about the amount of billions that the fashion industry takes. So this is a kind of monies financial areas report. Do have a little read. Do go onto the websites if you want to go onto them further. The Fashion Council talks there, and just have a little look. I won't go into them all. And then on the end of this, I have actually put a few skills in, and especially these. I did used to use these a lot for students in year 12 and 13, especially for CV writing. So you might want to use them in various different capacities, actually, because doing textiles, I think generally you do get a huge amount of skills from doing a textile course. I think that's quite important. You might want to use that on your textile prospectuses and things like that, and in your planning going forward. There's lots of places you can put these. I used to have these on the board as well. And if you look at things like flexibility, I mean, that is a biggie for us. Yeah, in textiles, I think it's a time management, because we all know how long our course takes compared to a lot of other people. Dare I say it? So have a look at these and think about the skills. And then they've got some there. Interpersonal decision making, that's a good one. Leadership skills, and then I do have that on the board too, which is the types of courses that you can go on to. There's not all of them, there is just a few there for you. British Fashion Council again, and then reasons to choose UK fashion. So I think there's a few pointers there for you. So that's the first slide. Are we all okay? I do my slides very quickly, but that's because I know that you're going to get them later and you're going to read them afterwards, and you will take what you need. You don't need me to be going on about it on a constant basis. Right, so this one's quite good, this slide. It's more or less the same as last year for those that came last year. I don't want to bore you too much, but ways to promote our subject, which is obviously really important, and how we go about that, and lots of ideas. And obviously you will all be doing majority of these already. Some might take some ideas from them. So I will just run through them quickly, and then you can have a look again afterwards. So look at creative careers. I used to have that from the previous slide on my door, and I always used to add a few onto that. Let's not all just think we're all going off to be fashion designers, because that's not realistic. We're all going to go off and do a million different types of things. And you and I know that these girls that go, boys that go off to university might do a whole career in fashion, but at the end of it, they might actually do something completely different. So, you know, that's the whole point. So look at booklets. You might have a little booklet, you might have your own department booklet, or you might have something in a school magazine. You obviously do have options booklets. These might be online now. Obviously, they're not printed so much these days because of the paper, but think about how you can put, so that might have been cropped from the previous presentation. And then I do an assembly. So look at thinking about offering to do an assembly. Assemblies these days in different schools, some are taken by SLT, sometimes they have each department do one, and I'm sure if you go up and just have a sip of tea. I'm sure if you go up and offer to do an assembly, people will be delighted. So you could just do assembly where you're doing a presentation on the whiteboard, or you could do, I used to do a little mini fashion show down the middle of the hall, which is quite scary for the students, but it was very visual. And we actually did one for the art department too. The art department used to carry their some of their paintings down the hall. So that was all quite nice and very visual. I'm sure a lot of you do clubs, so I won't go into that, extracurricular clubs. And I'm sure you do awards, and they can be sent by post or by email home to parents. Display is really important, and especially having your displays down the corridors. And I know all schools do that, and we're really, really good at that. That's one of the things that we're all very, very good at. So do think about your displays. Try and have your display, if you can, in the foyer. I used to go down to the foyer with all sorts of get you know, very friendly with the girls in the foyer, and you know, just take my stuff down there basically. So that's always a good one. Do a quiz. I used to get my sixth formers to do a fashion quiz, and that would go online to all the students and be used in form time. These are all little tiny little things that other people will think about the textile department. We've got our competition. We've actually completed it this year. We had over 220 entrants to our competition this year, so we will be doing it again next year. If you're here and you've had an email from me, congratulations. So the winners have been announced. We haven't announced it on Facebook yet, but we will do. Do some events with the charity. So do some events with charity with your local community. That's great. It gets you involved outside of the school. And it's really important to do things outside of the school, not just inside the school, so that you're being known outside. And we did a community challenge with Oxfam, and we actually did a shop in our local shopping centre. However, I was in Bluewater today, and I saw a shop in Bluewater today that also had this huge big shop. It was brand new. I don't really know what it was. It was selling all sorts of different sort of artwork from Kent, but it had Invicta School. I don't know if we've got anybody from Invicta here tonight, but it had lots of mannequins there that they had done, which is amazing. They were absolutely amazing. So there are other schools out there doing this and getting things in the window, which was fantastic. So you can just take up a window in your local shopping centre. Doing it in high streets is quite difficult because streets are run by landlords, but shopping centres do have to do so much within the community. So if you can get a window display, even if you can't, you know, it's a lot to do a whole shop, but if you can do a window display, that would be amazing. Have fashion ambassadors or fashion champions, give them a badge, get them to do the work for you. That's always a good one. Cascade your learning. I get my 13s to teach year 12s, 12s to teach 11s, especially when it comes to things like Photoshop, which I'm not very good at. So it's great for them to do that. You've got options evening, you've got careers evening. You could host your own creative careers evening if you wanted to in the department, and you can get year 12s and 13s to come in and talk. So I was telling somebody on Facebook the other day, I would get my ex-students to come in and talk to 13s, 13s to talk to 12s, 12s to talk to 11s, 11s to talk to year 9s. So all the way you can do is to get to go down and get them talking to each other. And they really do entice the students to come in and do textiles when they talk to each other. Get ex-students in if you can. I always keep in touch with my ex-students. That's always a good one. Get anything on your own media line and your own links. And get displays on about museums if you're going on trips and things like that. Do some cross-curricular projects. We've got a whole freebie resource on cross-curricular projects with lots and lots of projects on there. I'm sure Rachel, if she can, will put a link on there for you now, but we do have links with all those other subjects. Sorry, that was a biggie when that took a while, but I will go on to the next one straight away. Are you all still with me? Right, so I've seen this one displayed in schools, and I have redone this to make it a little bit more male and female friendly. So on here you will have slides of all the different careers. So you've got fashion careers and retail careers, fashion designers, manufacturing, and a little sort of clips about what they are, what they do, fashion and visual merchandising, journalism, but in journalism you'll have writer, stylist, critic, reporter, photographer, social media, PR. So you'll see on here how many actual careers there are: illustrators, PR, which a lot of my students actually go into these days, because obviously that's a real growing career. So CEO eventually, so manufacturer, mill owners, leadership teams at Marks and Spencer's, textile artists and designers, so textile careers, textile designer, fabric designer, agents, colorists. Hope you're getting all this, Nicola, because I'm sure you do all this as well. Interiors, so all the interiors going through. This is me, so textile, this is my previous career. Textile designer, I was a print designer and colorist, so it says a little bit on there about what I used to do. A textile artist or craftsperson, so we have quite a few of those. An engineer, so lots of engineers, they will need engineers in the factories. Medical textiles and more, so innovators. There's lots on there, some links on there to other constructed textiles. Theatre, television and film, and costume designers. I have a lot of girls go on to do costume, photography and stylists again, makeup artists, because a lot of our students do actually go on to be makeup and hair within. Then I've got the apprenticeships. Of course, insert your own image on there if you want to, so teacher and lecturer. And we've got little links at the end of this one to various different pages, Careers Week. That's a great one. So if you go in there, it's similar to what we've done. There's lots of creative careers, and you can go on a link to people talking about their careers. So there's lots of links on the end of that slide for your students. And of course, you could give that to your students. Somebody suggested the other day on Facebook, they were going to give it for homework, which I thought was a great idea. So have a little look and go through for homework. So how are we doing for time? Good. So I just have two more slides, and these are the not the actual recordings, but these are the links to the industry and student. We have some students and we have industry professional recordings. So all these recordings, are on a closed YouTube channel, and there will be more to come, and we are putting them on there all the time. But this is the slide that your students can use, and as you can see here, there's the link here directly to the video. So that's Aston, who works in PR, and you've got Sophie, who is a bridal, she designs and makes up bridal wear. You've got a knitwear designer. We've got Megan, who went on to, didn't think she wanted to do textiles at all, but then went on to do photographer, and she's doing some really, really amazing things. She's worked with some amazing companies at the moment. Kirsty, who is costume and bridal wear, and as you can see, she's done some pretty amazing things down there. She's been on the set of Bridgerton. And there she is as a seamstress. It's got two different links. Evie is just finishing uni, and she's on there talking about her knitwear at uni. So I think this is quite good for some students, because they will see different universities that the girls are at and different types of courses that they're doing. They talk about how they went from school onto their course and what they've actually done on their courses. And she's got a little video there. Emma, who's already, she did a tea and chat with us a month ago, just about, has done a video for us on, she's a print designer. Beth, who's just finishing uni, but actually she's literally just finished uni. So this was one she did last year. And she's actually now working for Paul Smith. At the time, she was just doing an internship, but I'm very proud to say she's one of my students. She's actually working for Paul Smith now. And Jamie, who is a tailor, and Catherine, who's been working with, did an internship with Erdem there, and Saskia, who is a woven artist. And because they are so big, and because I have some new ones, we actually have a second one here. So on this one, we have Deborah Sharp, this is amazing. She worked her way up to be head of technology at Marks and Spencer's, and she didn't have this career in mind at all. She wanted to go off and do something to do with geography, and she failed her geography A-level and ended up going to do sciences, and it was all very coincidental, accidental how she actually got on to be head of technology. So very, very interesting video there from Deborah, which we're very glad to have. Ashley, who designs for Qatar Airways. Julia, who is hopefully with us this evening, and Julia's had an amazing career designing for fashion at Marks and Spencer. She's done lots of ladies' wear and children's wear and underwear and lingerie, and actually she was a tutor too at Fashion Enter. So a lot about Julia's career there. And Louis, who is now working as a tutor, that a great insight. If you listen to him, it's a really funny story about how he got into uni. I won't go through it, so I won't spoil it for you. And Linda Harvey, who we saw at she came to one of our fashion outcomes course last week. So bless her, Linda actually did this for me yesterday, or the day before, so really quickly. And Linda is a textile artist in her spare time, but is also a teacher. So a lot of you might know Linda, because I used to use Linda for my students as an artist. I have about 4 or 5 more to come that haven't come through yet. I've actually got, believe it or not, my niece who is in Romania at the moment, but she's having a little bit of difficulties. So I'll stop the share there, as a lot of people are out in countries like that at the moment, but she's filming for Netflix. She's doing Wednesday Addams, so she's going to actually do one for us, and then I've got 2 or 3 other people that have got them to come. So they will all be on this closed YouTube channel, which is really easy for your students to get onto. If you download the PDFs, you just click onto the link and they will go straight on to the videos, and they are quite interesting to watch. They're quite short, so they don't have to be, they should keep their grasp and attention for as long as they can do to go through. They're just, some of them are 3 minutes, some of them are 5 minutes. And you could have them running in your lesson if you wanted to. Good to have quiet time, so you could have them running on the whiteboard while they're listening to them as a suggestion for homework. There we go. That's me. Are there any questions? Can you download them all? Yes, they will be ready to download. If you go onto the website and you go on to teacher resources, I'm sure probably Rachel will put it on there anyway for you. But if you have you already done it? Thank you, Rachel. You go onto resources on the website, and you will see every tea and chat normally has a free set of resources. And you'll find loads and loads of lesson plans and all sorts of different things on there, and you'll find the careers one on there as well. Oh, hello Julia, thank you for your video. There's Julia sat down there. Any other questions, Rachel, that I've missed? Can you share them with students? Yes, absolutely, they are there to show to your students. I don't think I have any faces on any of them. I think I've got one girl's face, but they're not to be shared on any other media site, which you'll see a clip at the beginning, but you can use them in your lessons and in school. That's what they're there for. Yes, absolutely. Did I miss any questions, Rachel?
No, I think that was it. It's been limited. Does anybody have any questions they'd like to ask based on Nicky's information? She does talk very fast. We need to get her to drink more tea.
I do talk very fast, I'm sorry. I have this fear of boring you, I think, and I know that you can read it all later. So if you've been on one of my courses, you know that I do things very, very fast, but you get more done that way. Any questions? You can come off if you want to ask me. Yes.
I've got options evening this week. I'm promoting the subject. We're literally starting the GCSE up this year, and I want to try and hook students in with some promises of trips. I'm really open to any suggestions of ways that I can promote the subject through trips and visits as well.
Whereabouts are you?
We're in the New Forest, but quite willing to travel.
Huddersfield University, I can recommend that as a day trip. Studied there myself, fantastic facilities.
Honestly, going to universities, I know Nicola does do this, but I took all my students to, obviously we're in Kent, we went out to the Kent University, but they do like little day courses or two-hour courses. I know Nicola does them. You can go on and do like a taster course session, and they were amazing, really, really fabulous little courses. We did a fashion illustration course and I used it all the time after that.
That's fantastic. We're actually quite near Bournemouth University of the Arts, so I might be able to try and set something up there.
So talk to them. But if you want to travel into London, obviously, you know, you've got all there's a new exhibition coming up at the V&A.
The V&A also does courses for classes, so for your students, so it might be worth getting in touch with the V&A and seeing what courses that they're putting on, because they will actually take your whole class and do a workshop with them.
They do, and the Fashion and Textile Museum do too. They do courses, separate courses. Fashion and Textile Museum in London, that's near London Bridge. Very small exhibitions there. It's a very small centre. They won't spend long there, but they also do courses and things for them as well. I don't know if those are free. The V&A ones are free, I think, but I don't know if the Fashion and Textile ones are free for the students.
Okay.
But yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Anybody?
There is some in the chat now. Lisa's put a question in there about where we can get a mentor advice or practical course to point me in the right direction. Lisa, I'll come back to you in a second on that one in the chat. I've got some links for you. Harriet.
I have been mentoring. I do mentor people. I've actually mentored 2 people today, Dawn. I actually didn't tell you that too earlier. I sort of managed to get them in before I came on here. So I think, so I shouldn't say that because I think she's on here tonight. I don't mean that to be rude. We had a lovely half-an-hour mental session. So yeah, but I am away for 2 weeks. But
Harriet, we will be talking to students in just a minute. Just bear with us. That's why Nicola's patiently waiting in the background. And then we've got Maya, who's asking about any students.
I can see that.
Yeah, have you seen that one?
Yeah, I never had any trouble with a fire risk. I mean, you have mannequins inside your classroom. That's just as much as a fire risk as they would be in the corridor.
The only one I came up against, Nicky, was they wouldn't let me put them in my D&T corridor because it was our only fire escape. So there was only one door in and out of our building. So we weren't allowed them in our corridor in my school, which is why I then went to other corridors that were bigger. So I did a fire risk one.
I always sometimes think you don't always have to have things outside your room, because anyway you're going to have things on the wall outside your room. I always think it's great to have things in the other parts of the school where that people are walking past rather than necessarily outside your room. I used to hang stuff from the ceiling, so it would hang down from the ceiling, not on the wall as such. But I used to put my mannequins slightly up off the ground, so they'd be on pieces of wood off the ground. What are those wood things that you get on back of trucks? What are they called?
Pallets.
Pallets, thank you. So I used to put mine on pallets, but they were pretty safe. They didn't move, they weren't setting anything off outside the room at all. But if necessary, you could just hang the garments like on a wire hanger and hang them down from the ceiling. I'd have thought that would move more and set off a fire alarm, but you can actually hang from a ceiling rather than actually have mannequins. So they'd be back towards the wall. Does that help at all, Maya? Hopefully. Any other questions?
Sorry, I'll unmute. Sorry, it's Maya. Yeah, thank you guys. At my school, it's very plain and boring. They don't really seem to want to share lots of pupils' work, and fear of vandalism and fire risk. We weren't even allowed to decorate doors. They did like a door competition. I had to put it on the inside of the door and not the outside of the door.
Can you not get acrylic sheets to go over the top, Maya, maybe?
Yeah, so the only board I've been allowed one board outside, and it's got like those lockable covers
things, yeah.
And then I asked them if I could, there's a space where, you know, I've got a wall and I'd love to do something with it, and I'm just really fighting to try and get another board that's lockable. But I'd love to just, my previous school, we had mannequins in the corridor and it was fantastic. The kids would ask questions.
Yeah.
It's just, different school, different site team.
I mean, if you're worried about the work, just photocopy it and print it A3 and just make a collage out of it. And if it gets damaged, it gets damaged. It doesn't mean anything. It's just photocopies.
It's more getting like 3D. I'd love to have, you know.
Oh, I know. Yeah. Yeah,
Thank
I
you,
do. I
guys.
mean, you know,
Appreciate
yeah.
that.
All right.
Thank
So I'm going to
you.
hand over to Nicola Redmore. Is that all right, Nicola?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
fine.
and I'll finish my tea.
Wow, well, I'm impressed with the list of careers there, Nicky, that you put up. That was absolutely phenomenal. Yeah, so I'm here really, you know, I can answer all sorts of questions about, you know, university, going to university, what you need to consider when you're sort of getting yourself ready for that. So those of you that are students out there, you know, great opportunity to ask me sort of questions. But as a university in Huddersfield, we're nicely situated in a place where Huddersfield sort of, you know, grew out of textiles. So it's got a real sort of beating heart, which is still all about the textile industry. So we've got a really strong sort of textiles course, but we also have costume with textiles. So it's good to see Nicky showing some examples of that. So we have quite a unique course in that textiles is a big bit of that costume course. So they're not just doing the design, but they're actually creating pieces, you know, using embroidery or print. We then have also a whole suite of fashion design courses, one that works with textiles. So they might then develop skills in knitting or perhaps embroidery or print. We also have sort of fashion designers who decide they really want to work on that sort of digital technology side. So these are the types of people that might go on to be the pattern cutters or the real engineers in fashion. So they understand, you know, the CAD systems involved, thinking about three-dimensional, you know, visualizations using various software. And those are really valuable skills. You know, to be a top-level pattern cutter is a real, you know, job that's sort of sought after, and the industry is desperate for people who've got those sort of understanding. We also have various courses that deal with, you know, the promotion of fashion and textiles. So a fashion design course with marketing, but we also have buying sort of, and also have a visualization course. So those are the ones that are really going to promote the fashion industry and textiles industry, and those who think about the creative direction. So there's various courses at Huddersfield, and some are very practice-based. So on the textiles course, for example, you might be somebody who's on that spectrum that really wants to get into textile art. You're about your own practice, about sort of investigating through textiles and responding, you know, to probably pertinent topics, or you perhaps want to work within sort of a gallery context. But on the other extreme, we have some very sort of commercial students. So these are the ones that, you know, might go into the sort of retail industry, work for major brands, but also, and I found that quite interesting when Nicky was talking, we have, because we have a BSc as part of our textiles course, we have an option to be slightly more scientific, more analytical. We get a lot of students who go into being, you know, product developers or people who are interested in the materials engineering, you know, so the real DNA of textiles. So they're not just picking something up and creating something with it, they really understand how that performs, you know, and what goes into it. And we talk about all of that. So there's a whole sort of good foundation there. I think Rachel was probably one of those students, weren't you, originally?
I have a Bachelor of Science in knitting. I'm a scientist of knitting.
Yeah, so this means, you know, we then have, you know, it's students like Rachel who went out to China, you know, so they're working perhaps usually on their placement year with sort of companies who are global presence, you know, within the industry. They might be situated locally, but ultimately it's a really global industry. And I think, you know, it's great when you see somebody like Rachel who actually took the opportunities and went overseas and really developed her sort of skills and craft and understanding. So for us at Huddersfield, that's really important. You know, it's about, you know, being an expert in that sort of area. And in fact, we've even had one student who was a craft student in textiles go on to be sort of a forensic scientist. Yes, you talk about unusual careers that you haven't predicted. And, you know, we often find that, you know, students come in and they think, oh, I'm going to be a printer and it's going to be for fashion. But by the end of the 4 years, we've opened up, you know, that whole sort of horizon. And they're like, oh, I never thought this is what I was going to do. I love, you know, thinking about, you know, testing of textiles or performance, you know, or I'm somebody who really wants to set up my own business. And we encourage that as well through the year we have out in industry. It can also be one where you can set up what's called an enterprise placement year. So that gives you the opportunity to be supported in creating a business plan, in trying out a business idea, you know, in sort of a safe environment. And inevitably those students are ones that then will want to go on and sort of set up that own brand. And I think we're seeing, you know, quite an interesting change in a lot of small, bespoke, independent makers, you know, starting to develop, you know, really sustainable businesses within fashion and textiles. And I think, you know, the recent lockdown sort of built the energy behind that. I think that's what's been fascinating. So if you think about it, if you're going to go into a career then in that area and you're going to set up a business, you need all sorts of skills, don't you? It's not just about being creative. You've got to be able to communicate effectively. You've got to be able to understand what you're buying in to make your product, to take ownership of that, and to, you know, to be quite an expert in a range of areas. And we really support students in that sort of journey, really. I think the other thing to mention, I know Nicky had some great information on some of the industry associations and what's happening. But Textiles 2030 is a key topic that's on our radar as well, which is about not just as consumers getting us to think about being sustainable in our, you know, buying and in the way we sort of, you know, recycle our clothing, but now we're asking the industry to take it seriously, that we create, you know, a circular economy. So, you know, where are things coming from? Do we understand how they've been made? And the big brands are joining into this Textiles 2030 initiative, which is really going to take sustainability seriously. So I'd say that's embedded into all of our courses at Huddersfield. And, you know, and I think particularly young people coming through now, you know, that's important, and we need to support you in sort of achieving that, really. So I don't know whether you want to just have a quick flick. I could just share a little bit of work from our graduate showcase just for a couple of minutes. Is that all right, guys? Yeah. Yeah. So I'm just,
Perfect.
yeah. So this is work. So it's been a challenging couple of years, but you'd be amazed at what students have created and thought about. So I'm going to share my screen. Even though we haven't been able to, you know, necessarily do everything we would have wanted to do. So we developed a digital showcase, and this is called, it's called radar.hud.ac.uk. I'm sure Rachel will pop that in the chat. But each of the students then really rose to the challenge in you know, digitizing the work they did, but also thinking in very different ways, because they didn't necessarily have access to the equipment they would have done normally. So this was 2020. So Chloe here did the most amazing print collection. So real sort of commercial, beautiful scarves. So she worked a lot on digital print, but we also work a lot with students in CAD design and, you know, the way in which you sort of realise your work, you know, within sort of a situation to show its context, really. So we also take a lot of students down to New Designers in London. So that's a show that's worth visiting, and it's on last week of June, first week in July, and all of the colleges.
Sorry, yeah, Nicola, I forgot that one. I used to take my students there every year.
Yeah.
Really, really inspiring to see what they're going to go on to do.
Yeah.
And yeah, just a really, really inspiring. We used to go there every year.
Yeah, so I'd really recommend that if you want to sort of scope out, you know, what textiles can be. It's a super opportunity. So just show you different sort of work. This is Sarah. She was an embroiderer. Hopefully you can see these okay. But she worked in creating sort of jewellery pieces, you know, and this was also while she was on the course, she spent a year at Oxfam in Batley. So we've got the sort of central recycling centre for Oxfam just on our doorstep. So we have a lot of students go there on placement. So she won one of their sustainability awards. This is Sarah herself modelling her own necklace, which is absolutely beautiful. But there's sort of great variety, and you know, these students not just only create beautiful pieces, but they will you know, write about this work, or they will do research reports or a dissertation, which really sort of builds your sort of written skills, your analytical and critical skills, so that you know, can express yourself not just through sort of visual work, but in other ways as well. Just show a couple more on here. So I should probably show you a weaver, else Rachel's going to think there's something wrong with me, because I'm one of the weave tutors. So my background actually is automotive interiors. Now, would you believe that I graduated as a knitter originally, but then went into designing fabrics for car interiors and worked globally doing that. So weave is an area that I've then developed a great interest in. So Millie was one of our final years who did amazing work. We work often with industry. So a lot of her work here, these jacquard patterns, were woven at a mill just up the road, who produce cloth for, you know, people like Dior and Gucci. They also weave for, you know, uniforms. They do aircraft fabrics. So really, really varied. So we get our students out there so they can actually understand what it is to be in that industrial situation and to design, and the sort of pressures that you have. And I'm about to take this year's second years week after next, so I'm, you know, championing them to get all their design work done. But Millie also worked, you know, we do a lot of drawing and design development. We work with equipment like laser cutters, 3D printers as well. So as much as she's a weaver, she sort of thought in other ways as she was developing her collections. This is actually Millie modelling her own collection. And even though she's not a fashion designer, you know, her illustration skills were really good as well. So I think that's quite a nice one to see. I'll just show you, I'm just going to show you one from 2021, just to show you sort of a different flavour. So this student I want to show you here is, I'll just find it, Louisa, who has now gone on to do an MSc, I'll see if I can zoom in on this, sorry, in product innovation with textiles. So she's stayed at the university, but she was all about, you know, trying to get a real understanding of rare breeds of wool and what she could do to set up a business or a consultancy in that area. So as a consequence of this, Louisa won some prizes with some of the livery companies in London. So she was awarded a prize by the Worshipful Company of Weavers, and she's now being supported by the cloth workers. So as a university, we've got these great arrangements, and it might mean that those students, you know, I think this year, one of them's won, you know, sort of like £5,000 towards, you know, her final year work, which is just stunning. So Louisa, as much as she was a designer, became really somebody who's interested in sort of the materials properties and how things performed, and, you know, what would happen to that wool afterwards, and how she could promote sort of the particular qualities of these rare breeds. So I think that just gives quite a different sort of angle to the more sort of design work as well. Okay, so I'd encourage you to have a look through here, and you'll see that we've got the whole School of Art and Design in here. We've now become the School of Arts and Humanities. We've merged with music and other courses, which is really exciting for us. But you'll find you've got all the fashion design work in here. So these are students who've combined fashion design with textiles, yeah. So some amazing collections and real sort of, I think, pertinent topics often, or they might have been, we found that a lot of students picked on very personal topics, things that resonated with their background or their families, particularly in these last 2 years of lockdown. But you can just see some of the skills here and the ways in which they've worked. And we're looking forward this year to getting back to a bit of a catwalk collection, you know, but we had some great photo shoots done in people's back gardens or in the woods, you know. They're very resourceful. And these are students who went on, several of them, to Graduate Fashion Week. So that's sort of in June. Again, a good opportunity to see, you know, what the graduates are doing from the fashion courses. So I'd sort of recommend that as well as another opportunity. And that's held at Coal Drops Yard now, next to King's Cross. So I'll just give you an idea. Yeah.
It's all in the trendy area of London now.
Yeah, it's beautiful, isn't it? Really cool. Yeah, I'm external examiner at Central St Martin, so it's a nice excuse to go up there. So it's
just wanted to say, when you were talking about all that, that we do have a lady who is, well, she's just finishing an MA, and she's passionate about designing for well-being. So we will have a video eventually that will go on. She's studying design for social innovation and sustainable futures.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure where she's doing it, but that is a pretty, you know, different course to what you might think is out there.
Yeah.
Students, there are a lot of different courses out there. If you look on all these university sites, it's not just textile design, fashion design. There are a lot of different types of courses out there. Social innovation and sustainable futures. So that's pretty different. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it is. And that's, yeah, I'm just showing you some of the sort of more promotional work here, but you're right. And I think, you know, it's about, you know, how do you use textiles as a vehicle to take you into other areas, you know, so it might not be, well, it definitely isn't sort of that end of that road. I'm just going to stop sharing there a second. Let me just get me 1 minute. Stop sharing, Nicola. I can't remember to stop share. There you go. Right, I'm always on Teams, so I forget when I come on Zoom what to do. Yeah, so I'm hoping. I think you're on mute, Nicky.
Well, I forget how to do Teams.
Yeah. Yeah.
How to unmute.
Sorry.
And how to unmute.
Yes,
Yeah.
Exactly. Thank you, Rachel.
Yeah, so I think it's about, you know, building creative thinking, isn't it? And you might do that through fashion or textiles, but ultimately, you know, there's a whole, I don't know, a lot of new areas anyway developing out there, that careers we haven't seen previously. You know, the industry is still crying out for, you know, people who are really keen to develop their skills in that area. But I think we're seeing now, you know, development of more performance areas, you know, smart textiles, you know, and other, you know, creative subjects that have come out of sort of textile basis. So we've got students who've gone on to work in medical textiles. I always think that's absolutely amazing. There's several companies in West Yorkshire who work in that area as well. So, you know, the world's your oyster, really.
Yeah, I think over the past 5 years, there's definitely, universities have expanded their courses a lot. They have changed for what needed to happen. So yeah, they've changed because the world has changed. So yeah, there's a lot of new courses out there.
Yeah.
Rachel, you were going to have a little chat to us about your pathway.
Yeah, I've had a bit of a crazy journey. So I just thought, how many students have we got on tonight? Can we see a bit of a show of hand? You can do the raise hand thing if you're used to Zoom, or just pop a yes or no in the chat box. But it'd be interesting to see how many students we've got on tonight. I brought my auntie along, who followed in my footsteps and is now doing fashion at uni. So I keep dragging her to these events. She won't go to Huddersfield, Nicola, I tried.
Oh, never mind.
I've got some hands up. Excellent. Okay, well, I just thought I'd explain a little bit about my kind of journey. So I started out in Bridlington, a tiny little town on the East Coast, and went to Huddersfield University. And at Huddersfield University, I went there thinking I was going to be an interior designer. That was my plan. It was changing rooms back in the 90s. Lawrence Llewellyn Bowen still eats my heart every day. Always was the case. And I graduated university as a sock technologist. That was not what I planned at all. So went into uni not having a clue what I wanted in terms of a specialism. Ended up, it was quite funny because Chris Beaver, who was the knit teacher at the time at university, their job came up in China that Nicola mentioned, and it was to go and support a company as an apprentice. And based in China, Chris Beaver came to me and said, "Oh, Rachel, I think you're the only one crazy enough to take it." And I was like, I don't know if that's a challenge or not. And anyway, I took the challenge and I applied thinking I'd never get the job. And even, this is how crazy it was, they emailed me, the company, and said, come and meet me, come for an interview, sorry. And I turned around saying, sorry, I can't afford the train fare. And they were like, oh, well, we'll pay for your train then. I was like, oh, okay. I kind of was like pushing them away, being like, no, I'm not going to go to London. It's too expensive. A bit, in hindsight, I probably should have been a bit more ambitious. But I went to, oh, we've got someone who remembers Chris, someone called Kay. Oh, good old Chris Beaver. And so then I went on to living in China for a year as my placement year at Huddersfield. And I got some bursaries for doing that. And like I said, took a job in socks completely. I never, ever in a million years thought I'd work in socks. And I actually then spent, I think 4 or 5 years working in the sock industry for 2 different companies. But what Nicola was saying is textiles really can take you through a lot of different journeys, because after I left the sock industry, I started my own business for a short while. I did that for 2.5 years. I don't want to say I failed. I cashed out, so there's no failure there, but I didn't do as well as I wanted to do. And I went on to actually do some marketing. So I was actually the marketing representative for the Hard Rock Cafe, Southeast Asia. Then went on to be the designer and manufacturer of Harley Davidson accessories. So did quite a lot for their Southeast Asia Pacific, stayed in China basically, doing these kind of various jobs. And then my last kind of role in the industry was working for the second biggest importer of women's apparel. So I worked for a company called G3. They imported a lot of different types of clothing and brands, such as we owned Donna Karan, quite a few, Mark New York and things like that. But then we also licensed Calvin Klein, Tommy Hilfiger and all of the other ones as well. So really a lot. I had a very traveler's lifestyle. By that, my boss would literally say, you're going to China tomorrow, or you've got a meeting in America in 2 days. And it would be a case of just getting on a flight and going. And my best story that I tell students, so I am now a teacher, never thought that would happen, but it did. And I tell students my favorite story is when I made $3.5 million in a day selling leather jackets, which, you know, sorry to the vegans on the call, but I sold a lot of them. And it was just a fantastic journey through my career. And now I've ended up in teaching, which again, never planned on it, but loved it. So the textiles industry really does throw so many curveballs. 1 minute you're an interior designer for Lawrence Llewellyn Bowen, then you're a sock designer, and and now I'm teaching textiles in a school. So the students that are on the call tonight, just go with it would be my advice. Don't feel like you have to be the next fashion designer, because it might just be that you are the next wallpaper designer or sock technologist, or designing for Audi, like Nicola said, for her car interiors. It was Audi, right? No, just kidding. But yeah, I just thought I'd share kind of my little story, because that's how I know Nicola as well.
And Rachel will be doing a video for you.
Yes, I will. On my to-do list.
To go on the because she does have such a varied career, I think it would be great.
You know what they say, don't they? Is it jack of all trades, master of all of them?
Master of all of them. Yes, thank you, Rachel. Yes, so Rachel will also have a video. We've got 3 or 4 more of these videos to go on there, which I think are great because they're real people and the students like seeing these different careers. And as I said at the beginning, they don't always go on to do what they imagined they were doing. And I think a lot of the videos you'll see, they started off doing, they started in textile club in year 7 and they thought they were going to be a fashion designer, and actually found out when they did GCSE they didn't really want to be a fashion designer, but there were so many other careers that they could do. And I think when you look on my PDF, you will see how many different careers there are, and hopefully that will inspire them. It's creative careers, even though they're doing textiles. It's creative careers that are out there, and they will go.
I think as well, doing the different courses, Nicky, as well, like the university courses or wherever you go after school, it allows you to realise what your strengths are as well. And as I grew, I realised my strengths weren't actually in design. I thought I was a great designer, but actually I was a better salesperson or a product developer, or far better in other things. I think your skills develop as well as your career as well. Find your strengths.
So that's
we've got
a few.
Yeah, we've got a few more minutes. So I was wondering, has anybody else got any more questions so that we could sort of wind this up? Any more questions?
Rachel, you wanted to add a bit on to the end, please. Rachel's very good at this.
I do, sorry, I do. I was trying to reply to Lisa. Lisa, I will message you. Sorry, I'm not a good multitasker. Students on the line, this will be boring for you, so apologies. Teachers that are on the line, hopefully you are all following all of our social media accounts. So you're already following all of my posts on Facebook, watching Nicky's Instagram rise, following our Pinterest account. And again, I'll drop all the links to those in the chat box. I think it's really great just to kind of see what's going on and look at the interesting articles and things that we do post. We are a group of volunteers as well, so we do ask, if possible, if everyone could drop £1 in our donation box, then we would be able to cover the costs of our Zoom meetings that we pay for, along with our websites and other bits and pieces that unfortunately we do. As much as we all work for free, you know, we do have costs that we need to cover. So
we do
anyone
this
that
for
can
free,
support us with that.
Yeah. We do the talking and the PowerPoints and all that for free. That's not what it's being able to have Zoom and the website and all those other things we have to pay for, because we do have to pay to have the Zoom.
So I'll drop all of those links in the chat box. If anybody has any other questions before we leave, please let us know.
Please do join me on Instagram. It's my job to get the numbers up, and I'm doing really well, so I would love it if everybody went on their phone now and looked up Textiles Skills Centre and joined me. They do that on the telly, don't they, where they look and they go, oh, look, it's gone up, it's gone up, it's gone up. And I'd love that. That would make my evening.
There's one question here about how important is it to have industry experience?
If you don't have it, you don't have it. That doesn't mean to say that you're not going to be the best teacher on the planet. Really, it really doesn't.
I have this debate with people in my department because I'm a very new teacher. I've only got a year's experience. So I'm the opposite. So everyone in my department are all university teacher and then into teaching. And I think there is value in everything. There's value in both. And if you can get different skill backgrounds combined, even better.
If you're struggling with skills, and I know this is awful, this is a plug, but if you are struggling with skills and you've come direct through a different route into teaching, and I know there's lots of teachers out there that have come different routes into teaching, please do look at our courses. Honestly, I can't say enough, the people that the feedback that we get is amazing. They really do feel like they're, I don't know if anybody on here has done any, but the feedback is that they feel revitalized, they know what they're doing. I do techniques, so it doesn't have to be the online ones. Oh, the courses are fantastic, thank you. Just they could be the face-to-face ones. We're just putting up the summer series now. We're just trying to work out dates with everybody, but we will have the surfaces, the constructed and the fashion outcomes courses, face-to-face ones coming up.
Nikki, yes. I just got 10 notifications on Instagram.
We also have a mentoring scheme that we're sorting out. So if anybody is in need of mentorship or would like to become a mentor, then please do get in touch with us, because we are trying to organise that at the moment. Nicky seems to be doing everybody, so we're trying to change that and get a few more mentors. And
I've got one in the morning before I go on holiday, which is great, because it's great to be helpful, and that's what we're here for, and I love it. I'm semi-retired and I love mentoring people, but we will have more mentors to come. So if you feel you want to be one, I know Linda wants to be one, so if you feel you want to be a mentor, it is all on the website.
One big huge thank you to Nicola Redmore for joining us again tonight. It was a brilliant night. We've had 60 odd people on this chat tonight, which is just great. And just thank you so much, Nicola, for taking some time out and talking to us. And thank you to Nicky as well for her bit and her resources, which are all up on the website. And I've noticed that quite a few people have already started downloading those. So
they're all there for free.
Yeah, we're going to finish now. It's been a really good session, and we hope to see you again in a month's time for myself and Julia, who will be doing the simple pattern cutting. So thank you, everybody, and we will hopefully see you again soon. Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you, bye. Thanks, Nicola, so much.
Thank you.
I always want to come back to university when I talk